Let's jump right in. Today, we're doing an explainer on something truly monumental. We're stepping way back in time to the year 680 AD. That's the year 61 in the Hijri calendar. Now, this isn't just your standard history lesson about dates and places. No, we're diving deep into an event that literally redefined what sacrifice and moral courage actually mean. It's a pivotal moment that still shapes the hearts and minds of millions around the world right now.
But before we get into the actual timeline, I want to ask you something. Think about it. What does it really take to stand against ultimate injustice? Imagine you're looking right into the face of an absolute, unstoppable regime. You're basically told to bow down and accept it or lose absolutely everything: your home, your safety, your life. It's a massive, heavy question, facing down absolute tyranny without bending, without compromising your core principles. Honestly, it takes a level of conviction that's almost impossible for us to wrap our heads around. And yet, history shows us it happened.
Okay, let's dive into this. At its absolute core, the story of Karbala is the ultimate showdown. It's truth and justice, what's known as haq, going head-to-head against falsehood and oppression, or batil. The whole thing sparked like wildfire when the ruler at the time, Yazid ibn Muawiyah, demanded allegiance. But here's the thing. His rule was built on severe injustice and tyranny. So demanding allegiance wasn't just some standard political formality. It was a demand to literally endorse his oppression. It was a complete ideological earthquake. Would the forces of truth just step aside and let falsehood legitimize itself? No way. Which brings us to Chapter 1, Zulm se inkar, the refusal of oppression. When that demand to legitimize tyranny was made, a massive line was drawn in the sand. Imam Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, carried this immense moral and spiritual authority. He wasn't just a regular citizen, he was the living embodiment of his grandfather's teachings of justice and equity. So when he was pressured to submit to this unjust regime, he made an earth-shattering choice. He flat out refused. He knew that if he validated an oppressive ruler, it would corrupt the very foundation of truth for generations. Actually, rather than endorse this na-insafi, this injustice, he chose to uproot his whole life. He gathered his closest family members and his most devoted companions and made the incredibly tough decision to leave his home in Medina. Let's move to Chapter 2 and see how this builds. Karbala ka Safar, the journey to Karbala. See, this refusal wasn't just a statement. It set a huge physical and spiritual journey into motion. Let's map this out chronologically real quick, because tracing this route helps you understand the escalating tension. First, Imam Hussein and his caravan leave the safety of Medina and arrive in the sanctuary city of Mecca. While they're there, something major happens. They start getting flooded with letters from the people of Kufa, begging for help against the tyranny they were facing. Responding to this call for justice, the caravan heads out toward Kufa. But the situation on the ground drastically shifts. Before they even get close, they're militarily intercepted in Iraq and forced to stop at this desolate, barren plain. That plain is known as Karbala. And this is where a really agonizing reality sets in. The opposing army didn't just stop the caravan, they set up a brutal blockade. Picture this. You are stranded in a scorching, burning desert. The sun is absolutely punishing. And then an army of thousands completely cuts off your access to the river. They deliberately deprived Imam Hussein, his family, we're talking small children here, and his companions of water. It was this cruel, calculated tactic designed to break their will, to force them to surrender out of sheer physical desperation. But even with that agonizing thirst and impossible odds, their spiritual resolve, it didn't crack, not even a little bit. This leads us to Chapter 3, Ashura, the Day of Sacrifice. The days of the blockade dragged on, leading to a moment in history that honestly requires us to just pause and reflect with deep reverence. We've arrived at Ashura, the 10th day of the Islamic month of Muharram. Ashura is the day the sheer weight of the standoff reached its tragic, bloody climax. Outnumbered by a mind-boggling margin, Imam Hussein's companions didn't run. They didn't surrender. Knowing exactly what awaited them, they stepped forward, one by one. They laid down their lives for the sake of truth. They literally chose a physical death over a spiritual submission to tyranny. That fierce loyalty and bravery are central to why this event has never, ever been forgotten. And finally, after witnessing the loss of his beloved family members and his truest friends, Imam Hussein stood entirely alone on the battlefield. He fought with unmatched bravery and endured everything with unwavering patience, until he too achieved martyrdom. He stood firm by his core principles up to his absolute last breath. By prioritizing the truth over his own survival, he didn't just end a battle, he cemented a timeless, unshakable example for all of humanity. Which brings us to our final chapter,
Chapter 4, Ek Abdi Pegam, an eternal message.
Now, this is where the story shifts. It goes from a profound historical tragedy to an incredibly energetic, inspiring legacy. Because Karbala, it was never merely a physical clash of swords in the desert. It was a blueprint for the human spirit. And this brilliantly illustrates the moral victory that has echoed through the centuries. The enduring legacy of Karbala rests on four indestructible pillars. You've got sabr, which is patience in the face of unimaginable hardship; himmat, immense courage against overwhelming power; insaf, an uncompromising demand for justice; and sachai, an unwavering commitment to the truth. Imam Hussein's sacrifice became this universal lamp of freedom. It continues to illuminate the path for anyone, anywhere in the world, standing up to oppression today.
This entire philosophy is captured beautifully in a single, powerful thought. Har roz Ashura hai aur har zameen Karbala hai. Every day is Ashura, and every land is Karbala. Well, let that sink in for a second. This isn't just poetry. It is a profound realization that the clash between truth and falsehood wasn't isolated to one desert in Iraq 14 centuries ago. It tells us the fight against injustice is continuous. It is universal. The exact same moral choices presented on the plains of Karbala are the choices presented to humanity every single day.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We've seen what it took to stand against ultimate injustice. We've seen a supreme sacrifice made to ensure that truth wouldn't be erased by power. If Imam Hussein's sacrifice teaches us to never, ever bow to tyranny, how do we uphold that exact same light of justice in our own lives today? How do we apply that patience, that courage, and that truth to the injustices of our modern world? It's a question worth keeping close to your heart. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and I hope it sparked a deeper understanding of a truly eternal triumph.